Hello and welcome to the Bored Skeptic channel again. I know in the description it says that this had to be rescheduled. That was the old description from a couple of days ago. I haven't updated it yet, so sorry about that. But first, I'd like to welcome everyone to the who's in the chat. Thank you for joining us. Tonight is going to be a debate night, so we're going to be. It's going to be Scott Williamson versus Cindy Plaza, and Scott is going to be trying to Steelman the Christian position, and the topic is going to be the Transcendental Argument for God. So please, show some love for Scott and Cindy in the chat, and we hope that this is going to be a good one. But before we get started, I would like to shout out the Promethean Secular Frontier, which I do a lot of work with. We are expanding again. So, there's a lot of great things going on over there. Tomorrow night we actually have a really interesting discussion, which is going to be all the hosts of the Promethean Secular Frontier together on one stream, and we're going to be discussing Star Wars and how Star Wars relates to religion in the real world. So please tune in for that. All the links and everything will be in the description of my channel. So let me bring in the guests for tonight. Hello, Scott, and hello, Cindy. How are you doing?
Hello, hello.
Hello, doing good.
Are we excited for tonight's debate?
Yes.
It's going down, baby.
Well, I'd say you've got the hardest job tonight, Scott. Steelman.
We're going to see. Yeah.
Personally, I think you'll do a
That's
good
true.
job because you're always good at. I've seen you a couple of times Steelman a position, and you're very good at doing that, playing the role of the Christian. So a little bit too good, I think. So Transcendental Argument for God. I think we'd set it at 10 minutes openings each, and then just an open discussion to follow on from there. So do you want to go first, Scott? It seems as you'll be doing putting the argument forward.
Yep. So I'm taking the affirmative. So hopefully, I don't know if it'll take 10 minutes to really lay this out, but I will try to be as detailed as I can to make the argument here. So the transcendental argument is basically that all ethical standards, morals, and science itself ultimately presupposes the theistic or Christian worldview, and that God's absolute nature, as told in the Bible and in Christianity, is the source of all logic and morals, right? So an omnibenevolent God provides the basis for attributing right and wrong to any thought or action, okay? In creation, God equips humanity to act as moral beings, and in self-revelation, God demonstrates how people should act, and he commands them to do so. People then have an objective source for their standard of morality by which to condemn evil thoughts and actions or to commend good ones. But, subjectivist and meta-ethical relativists, like my opponent, by contrast, cannot really condemn theft, rape, or genocide, nor can they commend generosity, marriage, or preservation of life without relying on the assumption of an objective source for morality. So no moral assertions can be explained by the subjectivist's own worldview. So that's what we're talking about is worldview. Not that an atheist cannot be moral. It's just that they are instead derived from unconscious knowing by being an image of God, right? The Bible says we were made in God's image. Paul in Romans tells us that we sort of know morality within ourselves naturally. But when they articulate it, they're simply borrowing capital from Christianity. So they're really proving the truth of Christian worldview. That's why the laws in different countries, especially in the Western cultures, reflect Christian values. And most people, I think, on an individual level, know that murder is wrong, stealing is wrong, lying is wrong. The basic things that we find in the Christian ethic. So also logical absolutes are conceptual by nature. And so they're not dependent on space-time, physical properties, or human nature. They are not the product of a physical universe, right? Because if the physical universe were to somehow like disappear tomorrow, logical absolutes would still be true. So logical absolutes are not the product of human minds because human minds are different, not absolute things. But since logical absolutes are always true everywhere, and not dependent upon the human mind, it must be an absolute transcendent mind that is authoring those, right? And this mind is what we call God, and it's reflected in Scripture. So we know God's mind through natural revelation as well as special revelation. And so this sort of argument is true because the denial of this proposition would result in a catastrophic absurdity or a contradiction. So to deny an absolute grounding as a standard of moral and logical truth, well, the results is absurdity or contradiction. So all of your statements of truth would be simply arbitrary and meaningless because they rest on a subjective house of cards, so to speak. So that's really the argument as I'm laying it out, and I'll go ahead and concede my time there.
So hi everyone, and thanks to Box Skeptic and Scott to allow me to have this debate tonight. So I'm going to argue that there are a lot of flaws in everything you just said. I've seen some circular arguments, some post-hoc rationalization, and that's what's wrong with the tag, because it all comes down to a circular argument. You have to accept God to prove that the universe can't exist without God, or that the laws of logic can't exist without God. So presupposing anything, by definition, is circular. So that's what I'm going to try to prove and to address. And that's pretty much everything I had to say for the opening. So I'm going to leave my time too, so we have more time to the discussions, which is the best part. So please go ahead.
Okay, so
All
let's go into an open discussion then. That's absolutely fine. I'll just leave it to you to both to discuss this in further.
Right. So, Cindy, you stated that the argument was circular. You do know that all worldviews are eventually circular, right?
A worldview is not an argument.
Right, but the transcendental argument is based on the worldview that God is that ultimate grounding for logic, morals, and ethics. And it's just the argument is that we have that worldview that can properly account for that through necessity. But you do agree that all worldviews are ultimately circular, right?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No,
And I thought you'd say that. So let me ask you something. What is your absolute grounding for what is possible and impossible?
I don't have one, and I don't need one.
Okay. So basically everything you say as far as what's possible, what's impossible, any sort of truth statement, that's basically arbitrary and kind of meaningless? That's what you mean?
No, it's not. You're talking about two very different things. The fact that there is an absolute to ground something doesn't mean that if you don't have one, it's meaningless. I don't know how you connect those two things.
Sure. So I guess I would ask, what are you, if it's not meaningless, then what is your meaning grounded in?
I don't think this question has meaning, to be honest, because
Or maybe I should rephrase it. So if you don't need an absolute standard for meaning, is that it? Well, let me ask that. Maybe I should back up and ask that first. Do you think that there should be some absolute standard for meaning meaning at all? I'm sorry.
No, I don't. I think that each individual sets its values and its purpose for themselves, and so because of that, we don't need any absolute.
Okay, so when you make that statement that you just made, it has no absolute standard. So why should I believe you?
Why would you need an absolute to believe me?
Because we need a referent. We need something to necessitate why something is true or false. If something is not referenced, then we simply have no reason behind it. If everything if you say that your beliefs need reasons, then I'm just asking, what is the reason behind your belief that your statement is true, is what I'm asking, really.
Yeah, you said two very different things here. First, you said that we can't ground something if we don't have an absolute behind it to explain why it's here, and I totally reject that statement, because we have a universe and we have no idea what's behind it. We have no idea what's before the Big Bang, if there is even before, and right now we have no way of knowing what's before that or behind it. So saying that we need an absolute to ground the universe, for example, it's a statement that you cannot prove to be true.
How would you? What would constitute proof for you then in that case, if there's no absolute referent? I don't understand.
Anything? I mean, you just gave us a statement, and you expect me to accept it, and I don't, because it's nonsense.
Okay. So you're denying the premise of the question, I guess. So let me ask you this way. So you did say that reasons were required to believe something, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if reasons are required to believe in something that is or is not, what is it that's fundamental to reality that dictates what is and is not? I mean, what is that thing that, because if you're just not basing it on anything, on a standard, and you're saying it's anything, as you said, then what you're appealing to is arbitrariness, and that's kind of a weak position.
So you're taking a prescriptive approach, and I think that's a mistake. We can only have a descriptive approach to our universe, because the only thing we can say for certain is what we are experiencing as a whole. I mean, the entire universe, the entire humankind. The only thing we can deduce from that is that the laws of logic are consistent through history. And so because of that, we assume that they are foundational, if we can say that. So because of that, I say, okay, I observe that the laws of logic work every time, so I assume they work all the time, and I assume them as a foundation to my arguments and my beliefs.
Okay, but then we run into the problem of inference. You said that the laws of logic tend to work throughout history. How do you know that? How do you know that necessarily it follows? Oh, did we lose Cindy?
Yeah, I think she's got some connection issues. She should be back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she should jump back in.
Okay. Excuse me, man. This cough is killing me.
I'm just wondering how long you can keep this up, Scott.
Right? You just got to keep repeating the same thing over and over.
There we go. We got Cindy back.
Yeah, sorry. So, can you repeat your question, please?
Okay, so yeah, I think we're talking about the problem of inference. Are you familiar with that concept?
Can you please explain?
All right, so the problem of inference is that, you know, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, it's like in the future. Well, actually, let me do this. Let me give you the official instead of guess on this. Excuse me. So, all right. So it's really the problem of inference or the problem of induction, right? So if you go to the Standard Encyclopedia of Philosophy, it kind of gives you a description about it. So when we think generally about observations, we make and are able to justify some expectations or predictions about observations we have not yet made. But we don't know those things are going to happen in the future. For example, like an observation that bread of a certain appearance has so far it seems nourishing so far, seems to justify the expectation that the next similar piece of bread I eat is also going to be nourishing. But that's not necessarily true. It's just an inference. Such inferences from observation to the unobserved or to general laws are known as inductive inferences, and they have a lot of problems. This is well established in philosophy. So when you're appealing to inference, like, the laws of logic always seem to hold up, therefore they're going to always hold up in history. That's just a bad, weak argument. Whereas I'm appealing to a grounding, something strong, not so arbitrary, not laden with those sort of problems. I'm appealing to the Christian God, who's described as, all powerful, all loving. He's the source of all knowledge, perfect knowledge, logic. You couldn't know right and wrong. You wouldn't know anything without this thing we call God. And that's what I'm appealing to here, is something absolute. And what you're not appealing to in your worldview is anything absolute. You're just saying, well, they seem to work today, they must be able to work tomorrow. That's a fallacy.
No, it's not. It's I agree that it's incomplete because we cannot be 100% certain of what tomorrow is going to be. But we can be fairly certain that the sun is going to rise on the east, and because they've been reliable for as long as humans have been on the planet, then I am justified in believing that it will be the case tomorrow. But again, as any position, as a skeptic, it's a tentative position. Doesn't mean I am sure 100% that it will be the case. If I have evidence that I'm wrong, then I will update my reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, inference is capable of helping us go through our daily lives. It's the foundation of science with the repeatability of results, and so far it has proven infallible. So far, so I see no reason why I wouldn't trust it. On the other hand, you assert again the existence of a God, which you haven't proved yet. And the problem I have with this is another kind of circular argument, because if you study story of religion, you see how gods evolved. You see that Yahweh was a minor war god in the I think it's a Canaanite pantheon, and then it rose to the only true God. So when you look at history and how this Christian God has evolved, and how gods in general evolved, you see that at first they were created by men to explain one phenomenon, and then two, and then more and more and more, until we have this one, which out of laziness, I would say, is supposed to explain everything. Everything. And any question you have, God did it is the answer. So if you create a God that's the answer for everything, then by definition, everything that exists because of this God. But it's been created in the first place, so it's a circular argument again.
Yeah, well, you're kind of bringing up a few things. So you're making an evidential argument. You're going back into history, and while those are very interesting sort of claims and interesting conversations to be had, this particular argument is the transcendental argument for God. So it's basically we're talking about logical reasons for why God should exist, right? Now, like like for example, like in atheism or agnosticism, the claim is that I don't know that any creator God exists or does not exist. Now, if that statement is true, then it necessarily follows that Christianity is false. Now, if it necessarily follows that Christianity is false, then the agnostic knows that at least one major contender for the creator God does not exist, thereby contradicting the agnostic statement. Okay. So the way it is supposed to work is that, the Christian God involves him being revelatory, which is to say that that's kind of like a part of the definition of God, that he has revealed himself to us, right? So this God exists, and we know that he exists. It is this concept of God that is incompatible with agnosticism or atheism. So, if the Christian God exists, then you would know that he exists. You do know that God exists, and you do know that that agnosticism does not exist. Therefore, you know that God must exist. Okay, so it seems like a circular argument, but it's a worldview that's rested on the immutability of God logically. And all worldviews are circular at the end of the day. It's just that this one is virtuously circular. So how do you get over that? I mean, how is your worldview gonna close the loop? I don't get it.
So first, you said that you try to avoid questions about your God and try to come back to the tag. But since the existence of God is one of your premises, then I am entitled to question it. And that's the reason why I went to this history of gods, because we have evidence of gods, almost all of them being created by men. So that excludes the definition you are using as a god, as a Christian god. Also, as I said, you are claiming that one circular reason is better than no reason, which is absolutely false. Any argument that is fallacious like this one should be rejected out of hand and never used again. It cannot be used as a source of, or as a base for any other argument. So if your position is circular and there is no such thing as virtuous circular. I discovered that in a discussion a couple of weeks ago, and that made me laugh again as it did today, because that shows a serious misunderstanding of the laws of logic, which is, again, kind of ironic from someone who claims that their God is the source of logic, because you can insert any goodwill, any good thought in a fallacious argument. If it's fallacious, it just doesn't.
Mhm.
You cannot conclude. Well, you cannot infer the conclusion from the premises, and if you cannot prove your conclusion, then the argument is worthless.
So we admit the circularity of the worldview. That's fine, but just to kind of make the point, where do the laws of logic derive from then that you're appealing to?
I don't know, and I don't care.
Okay. But so in your worldview, though, I mean, as far as you personally, that's one thing. But in your work, because you're an atheist, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So on atheism, where is truth derived from?
I don't know, and I don't care.
Not
Again,
God. Not God,
no,
but what
not
else?
God.
What?
It's like if you're driving a car, you're not
Mhm.
trying to get to understand how it's been built, where the pieces come from. You really don't care. The car works, and that's all you need. And so you use it as it's intended to, and that it's the same thing with the laws of logic.
Right. So I understand that even an atheist can be logical and moral. I understand that, right? That's all well and good. But as far as worldview, we're talking about the best worldview that explains the justification and reliance on logic and morals and things of that nature. So would you say that, let's talk about morals a little bit. So would you say that raping babies for fun is objectively and absolutely wrong?
Well, you're begging the question here because you say raping babies for fun. So obviously, this cannot be. It cannot be good for one reason, because it hurts the child.
Why is that wrong?
Because as humanists, we want the best for humans, and maybe
Why is
also
that right?
for. It's right because we decided it was. Because we need to set up a set of rules, because we don't have anyone up there sending us rules like slavery is good, or murdering your son is okay, or raping your father so that you have descendants is okay.
So you're
We don't
basically
need all
saying
that.
that all of these things that we agree on is bad. For you, it just boils down to that's just a really popular opinion.
No, not popular. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, what I'm saying is, as a species, we need to set up a goal, and as any animal on the planet, our goal is to survive and thrive. And to thrive, we need to make sure our goal is to.
So you're making an evolutionary argument that
Yeah.
that basically forges out what our goals and ethics and morals are. But look, isn't evolution a blind process?
It is.
Isn't a process of nature? Don't the atheists think that evolution is just this blind, haphazard process of mutations that happen to lead to each species and biodiversity on the planet? So
It is,
it's
yes.
kind of like a chemical reaction. It's kind of like we're all just a chemical reaction So let me ask you this. If I was to shake up a can of Sprite on this hand and a can of Coke on this hand, and I were to open them up, which one spews the truth? Which one is more true? Because that's basically what you're saying. You're saying that we're just a chemical reaction of just determined processes. How can we get truth out of a process like that? Are we just spewing truth like a shooken can of Coke?
I don't think any process like that can bring you to truth, and that's not the purpose. The purpose of evolution is to, well, evolution hasn't any purpose, of course, but what it does is bring us diversity on our planet, because the underlying mechanisms behind evolution, that's just the result of how they work. However, we realize that being moral when we live in a society is beneficial to everyone. And that's why you have a lot of animal species that have morals just like us. You see it in apes, you see it in some mammals, you see it in birds, in crows, you see it everywhere. So if it weren't the consequence of evolution, then why so many animals have it too? Because again, it's beneficial to their survival to be to act morally.
Okay. So basically what we have is you're saying that right and wrong, morals,
I'm
all
not saying
ethical,
right or wrong. No.
or ethical, making distinctions between right and wrong, because obviously it's wrong to do bad to others, to hurt others, to affect their well-being. We want you. I think you took the humanist position that you want to spread well-being, right, to conscious beings. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we have two options here on the table. So we've got that accounted for by some blind, haphazard chemical process of evolution over millions of years, right, to account for that. Or we have a God with a mind, with intention, with morals, and we're made in his image. And that explains why we have that drive. And you're telling me that the blind process, the truth spewing Coke makes more sense to you.
You're just made a big fallacy, and you know it. You presented things as if there are only two choices. What if aliens created us and they inserted our morals inside our DNA? You could. They are thousands
Aliens.
of possible things. You presented two of them as if they were the only choices, and that's just wrong. And
Well, here's the thing. Here's the bottom line here, Cindy. So we've got we've got a story. Okay, let me put it to you like this. Okay, so we're in the courtroom and there's a murder. We're investigating a murder. We're talking about a murder, and so we've got the wife who's killed by somebody, and the mother was in the room when she was dead, when they found the body, and then we have the husband who was not in the room at the time. And the best explanation that people came up to would be that the husband killed the wife. They had problems, they have a big history, blah blah blah. Would you agree that it seems likely that the husband probably killed the wife in that story?
it would depend on the evidence you have. If it's
Right. Let's just say we're kind of lacking a lot of evidence, but the only thing we have to go on is the mother.
History.
I'm sorry.
The only thing we have is their history.
Yeah, like the history, and we've got two people involved. We've got the mother who and the woman was killed by force, right? Strong force in the mother's like this older lady, and then you've got the husband. But just to kind of cut to the chase, most people would agree that, the husband seems like the more likely candidate just based on that. But let's say if I threw in this little twist, the husband was a quadriplegic. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't move. Well, that changes the whole dynamic, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Yeah. So to say that the husband killed the wife at this point is this is called a reductio ad absurdum, right? This is what it is. It's basically with that story, what we're saying is that the denial of the proposition results in an absurdity or a contradiction, right? Like, he's quadriplegic, he's paralyzed, she was killed with force. There's no way he could have done it. And that's what we have here with this argument, is what I'm putting forth, is that, we have morals, human beings that want well-being for other human beings. We want to do good things for other people. We have the ability to do science and logic and things of that nature. And then we have the other option, which is aliens did it, or, like you said, aliens might have done it, which we have no evidence of, by the way. And then we have evolution, which is a blind process. A spewing Coke can did it. And so it just seems absurd that we're gonna say that the spewing Coke can is what did it. We're blaming it on the quadriplegic in this case. I mean, don't you see the absurdity of your claim?
No, I see a lot of absurdity, but it's not in my claim. No.
I'm trying to keep a straight face, man.
Yeah,
this is actually fun, though.
Yeah, it's pretty hard.
It is hard.
But still, you're doing a pretty good job at still manning this position, because it basically only relies on two things. My God is the source of everything, therefore you cannot ground whatever you have in whatever you use, therefore my position is better. And that's, as I said earlier, that's a fallacious argument, because the fact that you have a reason for something and I don't doesn't mean that by necessity your reason is right. You have to provide evidence that what you say is the source of morality and everything. That's the first problem. The second problem is, so you probably know Michael Shermer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he made a video now it's probably been 6-7 years ago. He called it the baloney detection kit. And it's a very, very interesting video, because so basically it gives you 11 questions to ask when facing a claim, and the answers to those questions, they help you determine if a claim is more likely true or more likely false. And one of those questions is, it's more a remark than in a question. It says, to prove your point of view is right, you cannot just destroy the opponent's point of view. You have to prove yours right. And so far, you've only tried to dismiss my arguments, and you haven't provided anything in favor of your argument, because you make a positive claim and you didn't provide any evidence.
Well, how about trying this one on for size? Okay, so we've got the hard problem of consciousness. Are you familiar with that problem?
Again, please explain.
Elaborate. Okay, so basically, we have this phenomenon we call consciousness, which is a non-physical experience. It's an experiential, and the way that I'm defining consciousness is an experience. How does something as tangible as a brain produce something as intangible as a first-person experience. You know, science is objective by nature. Consciousness is subjective by nature. You know, the properties of consciousness are things like logic, morals, conscience, things of that nature. These things are not things. These are conceptual, imaginary category of things, right? These things are real in the sense that they have causal powers for us. And so, although they're non-functional in the same way that, say, you know, some physical thing is, they exist, they're real, we do logic, we have language, we express these ideas and these thoughts, so we know that it's a causal thing. And we know that consciousness also causes the you know, changes in the brain. You know, it's not just that the brain makes changes to our conscious state, but it's also that our conscious state can make physical changes on our brain. It's called neuroplasticity. So it works both ways, which is a contradiction of epiphenomenon emergence, which is a contradiction of that. So here we have an example of something non-physical that interacts with the physical world, right? We have no materialistic explanation for that. In fact, that's why materialists call it the hard problem of consciousness. It's a well-known problem in the philosophy of mind. The only thing we have in science is correlation. That's what science is. It's all about correlation. So whereas somebody can report that they see the color red, an fMRI scanner can see blood flow in your brain in a certain part of your brain, and they can correlate what part of the brain is interacting with that particular experience or whatever. But that correlation has no theory for why that experience is what it is, right? So there's two different things. So we have a conceptual gap between the two. So that's what the hard problem is all about. It's all about that conceptual gap. And this conceptual gap is better explained by a conscious mind that's more fundamental to the world than materialism. Materialism is the exact opposite. The materialist view is that the only thing that exists is a material world, the physical structures of the world. But we know that consciousness exists, and we know that it's not a physical thing. It's basically an experiential reality. How does your atheism, how does that materialistic view solve the hard problem of consciousness? I'd love to hear it.
So you've said a couple of things that were wrong, but before I go there, I'd like to point out something because during these 2 minutes you just spoke, you've asked twice why, and the problem I have with a lot of philosophers and philosophy in general is that they ask a lot of questions, but they never ask if their questions are relevant. For example, if you say, where do we come from as humans, or what's our purpose? When you ask what's our purpose, you have a hidden premise in there saying that we have a purpose, and so which one is it? But you have not demonstrated that there is a purpose. So the question, what's our purpose? It's a fallacious question. The first question you need to ask is, do we have a purpose? And then if we conclude that yes, we do, then we can ask the other questions. And you just did the same thing a couple of times. So to answer your question, I'd like just to clarify. Do you think that the mind is outside the brain? Can be outside the brain?
It's transcendent. This is a transcendental argument. So it's not that the consciousness is outside of the brain. It's actually timeless. It's non-local. That's the idea here, is that consciousness is not in consciousness is not a physical thing. It's it's a conceptual thing. It's like numbers. It's like math. You know, math, those aren't in time. They're conceptual realities. So we're talking about a category of things that aren't physical. And so it's transcendent in the sense that, yeah, you're not going to have consciousness without a brain. Obviously, you're not going to have that, because that's the tool that uses consciousness to do its thing. So it's like, if you drink a beer, I'm going to get drunk, my brain state is going to change, and my experience is going to change as a result of drinking that beer. I have no problem with that. That has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't prove anything. But what I'm saying is that, I guess what I'm saying is that consciousness as a concept is altogether different than materialism, and materialism can't explain it. Therefore, God is the best explanation we have.
You're doing it again. You're again saying that you don't have an answer, therefore my answer is right.
Right. Right. And let me be clear. I think this is where we may have a misunderstanding about the nature of the arguments. So with any argument, it's not necessarily that the argument has to define like a concrete proof to it. That's the whole reason it's an argument. An argument is just, it's like you said before, appealing to the best explanation or what we can be the most certain about. Right now, appealing to something fundamental that's absolute, non-contingent, immutable, with a mind, has more stay power than a materialistic worldview on atheism. That's the whole point, is that the worldview itself has a better story behind it. It has a better grounding for reason and rationality, because basically with materialism, we're talking about evolution, we're talking about nature, we're talking about material things that have no connection. You can't make any sort of connection to the gap problems that way. It's just more question begging.
So you said that conscious was immaterial, right?
Yeah, that's right. Consciousness is not a material thing. That's right.
Okay. Would you say that a file on my computer is a material thing?
The file. Well, fundamentally, the file isn't what it appears to be. No, and that's a good analogy, and I would even agree with that analogy. But no, the file, probably what you mean is the file doesn't exist on the computer as we think it does. Is that what you're trying to say, or what do you mean?
Yes, a file is an emergent property of the information that's stored on my hard drive.
Correct.
And for the same reason, and not for the same reason, but in the same way, the mind is an emergent property of the brain. And you said earlier that science couldn't explain it, and it's wrong, because when you spoke about watching with a MRI or fMRI, what parts of the brain light up when we think about something. But since then, science has evolved, and now we are capable of watching a thought being processed in the brain, neuron by neuron, and we see the path taken by this thought. So we see that it's only material. There is nothing transcendental. The information is again an emergent property of this electric signal that's transmitted from neuron to neurons.
Right. Well, the neurons are the third is a third party observation of a first person experience. So that's kind of wrong. There's a first person experience in a brain. When you think of a sailboat, floating along the ocean, and then someone from the outside sees, when you think of that thought, a certain pattern emerges of neurons that fire a certain way in a certain sequence. That's not the sailboat floating on the ocean, Cindy. That's just the correlate. That's what I'm getting at. There's a correlate, and then there's the experience itself. There's the first person experience, which is separate, dualism, separate from the physical correlate, from the process itself. So yeah, we can talk about an emergent property all you want. That's fine. It's kind of like the striking of a guitar string. You strike a guitar string and you get this wonderful note that plays, right? But the guitar string is not the note. It's not what you hear. That's not what it is, right? There's two different things here. So what I'm saying is, what do we then make of it? Like, we know that the guitar string is grounded in what? The guitar string is grounded in the material world. It's made of fibers. It's, connected to the neck of the guitar and so on and so forth. And we can reduce it all the way down to atoms if you want. But the conscious experience itself is something totally different. We're talking about a property that doesn't share any of the properties that it supposedly emerged from. So we've got two different things here. This is dualism.
Well, you're asserting a lot of things, but what we can study on the brain right now is that everything we see is the product of chemical reactions and electric impulses, and what we have right now explains the difference of thoughts we can have, the difference of perception, the fact that when the brain is altered, then the perception is different. All that is explained already with the physical brain. So using Occam's razor, we don't need to add another layer of explanation, because naturalism provides perfect explanation already.
Well, this is where we're at in our conversation about consciousness. It's like we're kind of like, say, a tribe of people that were isolated, say, like on an island that never saw like a TV set. And let's say we set up a TV set and everything, and we turned it on, and pictures came out and voices came out, and these people didn't understand what the hell was going on. But they know that, if you fucking break the damn TV, the voices stop, the picture stops, the thing stops working. And so the rational thing that the natives are going to think, oh, so the pictures come out of this TV. That's what the TV produces TV shows. That's the fundamental. We don't need any more explaining to do. That's it. But if they knew the truth, that actually TV shows come from signals from a TV station that's, carried through a cable or through Wi-Fi or whatever, and that's what gets the signal. And then through the processes of the TV, they're able to regenerate the TV show for people. Then they would then understand that there's more to the TV than just the TV itself. And so with the brain, I think that we can say pretty accurately that the brain is not the full story. There has to be a God, because he's the TV station that's sending the signals, okay? And you can't disprove it. So there you go.
Because it's an unfalsifiable claim. So of course I can't prove it wrong, but you cannot prove it right either. That's why you've been only asserting things in the past hour and not give any evidence of what you said. So yeah, but
if there's no evidence, I tell you that's part of the thing, is that this is not an evidential argument. So yeah, you're right. I didn't come here to give you I didn't come here to show you Jesus Christ sitting on a throne and exactly how he's typing on his computer and sending these signals to your brain and stuff like that. I can't show you that, but it's there. It's happening. And the fact that you can't explain any different kind of proves my point, don't you think? I'm sorry, I'm getting silly now with it. I don't know how long I can keep this up. Okay, let's see.
I'm surprised you've gone this far, Scott. It's
Yeah. Yeah, I'm giving it my best shot here. What else can I say here? So basically, as it stands, you're basically, your argument is you don't need grounding or any sort of fundamental, absolute, immutable standard by which all truth statements and knowing what's possible and impossible would be known. Is that what you're saying? So what is your epistemology, if I can ask?
Logic, science.
And how do you know logic is true?
We already talked about that. I know it's reliable because it's been proven reliable for.
How do you know it's
centuries.
reliable?
Because almost 3,000 years ago, some people in Greece already theorized things that we can still use today, and things have been working the same way, and science has predicted the same results over and over, and we know that we are living in a system that's governed by fixed rules, and logic seems to be one of those rules.
Okay, very good. So how do you know that you're not a brain in a vat being fed these thoughts and being fed these rules through something like that? How do you know that's not the case?
I can't.
You can't. So everything you say could just be totally wrong for all you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so why should anybody take you seriously right now? Isn't everything you say just meaningless and arbitrary at this point? You could be a brain in the vat.
Because being certain 99% and not 100% doesn't change basically anything. Because the reason why that we can't find a solution to the hot solipsism problem doesn't mean we are not warranted in believing that those rules I mentioned earlier are not there, because we still, even though we were in the matrix, we still have to go through this world that we are living in, and to that we need to obey its laws. So
Okay.
even if I were a brain in a vat, for example, and everything is just impulses sent to my brain, then I would still be warranted into believing that all of this is true and keep living my life accordingly. Because if I say, okay, I'm a brain in a vat, so I'm not going to die if I jump from a tall building, then that won't work.
So basically your whole argument is, hey, it works, man. What the fuck? That's all I care about. And that proves me true?
No. I prefer no answer over a fake answer.
Okay.
I'm perfectly okay with not having a reason, not having foundation, because it doesn't affect my life. Because you say, yeah, that your God is the foundation of everything, but it has absolutely zero impact on your life. The fact that you believe that that you have those foundations, it changes nothing on the way you live your life compared to me. So,
but
in fact,
it
you
just
don't
has
really have an advantage.
it just feels empty. It's like what you're saying is that there's no grounding. It's like when I look around at the world and I see the trees and I see the mountains and I see the, and I see the sunset on the ocean. It's so beautiful. I mean, all things needed a designer. It's like if you're walking on the beach and you see a expensive watch you're not going to sit there and say this thing wasn't designed. Obviously, it was designed by a designer that was very intelligent, that had a purpose. It just seems like when the closer we look at the world, the more structures we see all the way down, like little machines, like little structures that create the world the way they are. So, I mean, how do you explain that?
How do you know that a watch is man-made?
How do I know it's man-made?
Yeah.
Well, it has the manufacturing marks of a man made it or human made it. So it has a purpose. It has intricacy. It has details. It's very what's the word that I'm looking for?
Characteristics.
Yeah, it's got the characteristics. Yeah.
And how do you know that those characteristics are man-made?
Because they have they have they're man, why can't I? They're complex. That's what I'm trying to think of. Very complex devices, these things. Obviously, all this complexity couldn't come about by random chance. How much more so does this intricate world come from a mind as well? Like a Superman, you might say.
I think we've been doing this for too long now.
You have missed out a key part
like
of the argument, though, Scott.
Say that again.
You have missed out a key part of the argument, though.
What's that one?
That's the open world versus the closed world system.
Yeah, the second law of thermodynamics.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Energy was the first law, which we want to ignore that part. But we want to talk about the second law of thermodynamics, that everything, eventually, in a closed system is going to dissipate, entropy. But look at us, man. We're here. We're finely tuned for life. I could throw the finely tuned argument at you if we had time. There's no way you could beat that one.
Well,
you might be doing good with this tag argument.
But,
what's that?
You take as much time as you need if you think you can keep it going.
Yeah, because I'm running out of tag arguments. So yeah, the universe is just right for life to exist the way it does, right? Like we're on a razor's edge, a little less gravity and the universe would have just imploded on itself at the Big Bang. A little less dark matter. I mean, you're looking at like 0.15 kilograms different of gravity, and we wouldn't be here. So how do you explain that? It seems like somebody contrived it to be that way. I mean, it could have been any other way, but it's this way. It's finely tuned for life. How do you explain that?
How do you know it could have been any other way?
Because this is the only universe we have to look at, ma'am.
Exactly. You don't know. It might very well be the case that it's the only way a universe can exist.
Yeah, but it's the universe we have. And when you look at it, it seems very obvious that the universe was fine-tuned, right, for life. I mean, all these cosmological constants, if they're changed just a little bit, we wouldn't be here to be talking about it. So
yeah. So the thing is, it's entirely possible that those constants have different values in another universe, and another kind of life comes out from this. So you cannot know that this fine-tuning is the only possibility for us to be here in this universe.
Well, it seems that it would defy Occam's razor to start just assuming that there's all these other possible universes out there, right?
I don't see why.
Because then it becomes an Occam's razor nightmare, right? I mean, the most simplest
No.
explanation is God. On top of everything else I've told you tonight. How much more do you people need?
Yeah. I just don't want to believe.
Yeah, you're like the you know how the UFO people have, we just want to believe. You're just totally opposite from that.
Well, I think we've tracked that out as
Yeah,
far as it's gonna go.
We pretty much beat this dead horse.
I mean, if you want to, we can end the facade now and go to just a discussion about that argument.
Yeah,
and
sure.
reveal your true self again, Scott.
There we go. Yeah, yeah. The way I usually refute that argument, like you did just fine. I mean, there's like no reason anyone has to have a refutation for it. It's just circular. But sometimes I say, just to make it a little interesting, give them a little something to think about, is when they start saying this absolute, nature of God is necessary for, logic, reason, morality, things of that nature. You can just always appeal to the nature of nature itself, the nature of reality. That can also be an absolute. It can just be another imaginary explanation that fits the bill, just like the God thing does. Like, you can come up with an infinite amount of explanation. A particle could be where all morality, and you just make it up, just make shit up, because that's all they're doing too. They're just making shit up to explain all the things they don't understand. So you can just do the same thing, just make it not God, and you've got the equality right there. It's like a parody. So that's usually the way I argue it, just to be a smart ass.
Well, I think you did a really good, job there, Scott. Kind of been bloody easy.
I agree.
And I think you did a really good job at debating that as well, Cindy.
Yeah, you did. That was really good. I was running out of things I could come up with.
Of course, Scott, you weren't you weren't stubborn enough for that.
Yeah, no, I was like, man, I just don't have that spirit in me, I guess. I need that. That's what I'm lacking, that Holy Spirit, man.
Yeah,
that Holy Spirit that makes you a jerk, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that you didn't do that is sometimes problematic in debates is that when you refuted an argument, sometimes they come back with it a few minutes later, like they didn't hear what you said. And you didn't do that, and that made the debate easier.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I wanted you to win. No, I'm just kidding. No, I wanted you to make your argument, because really I'm on your side of the fence anyways, but it's good. I wanted to give you the platform to, talk about it, because that's the whole idea here, I think, is to give both sides like a treatment, like how the argument goes, on both ends of it, without a lot of the noise in between, because in a real situation it gets noisy and passionate, but because we're kind of Steelmanning, we can kind of step back and just let the opponent talk all the way through, and
Well,
I think that's what
has a
people
good
want.
idea in the chat. I think we should, and I definitely agree with him. I did ask earlier in the chat for people to vote on this. So if anyone in the chat wants to give a score out of 10 for Scott on how well he Steelman the position, please put your vote in there. And also, if anyone wants to give a vote for how well Cindy did in debating the position, please leave your score in the chat, and we'll decide who the winner was.
I've got Jesus on my side. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we still can have debates, quiet debates, even when we have opposite views. We did it last time. I was debating a Christian, and it went really well. There was no animosity, no anger, just listening and
Hmm.
then answering. It was very nice. But so it's possible. You need to want it. You need to want to have the discussion, which is not the case most often on both sides. I would say even some atheists, they're just here to score points, to destroy arguments, to destroy the other people's position, and that's not what a debate is for. Debate is
Yeah.
not for the participants, it's for the people who are watching it, and so that they can evaluate their own epistemology according to what's presented on both sides. And then if they have to change their epistemology, then their reasons for beliefs can change too, and so beliefs can change too.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of ego involved in a lot of these atheist debates on both sides. Obviously, no one wants to be, everybody wants to embarrass each other, or, I'm gonna tear you up in the debate, and all this kind of showboaty WW wrestling type of approach. It's kind of silly, but it's just fun sport for me. I don't get, like myself. I don't really care, like, if the person I'm talking to takes me serious or believes any bullshit I'm saying. I just like to test the argument out and just have the fun. The conversation is fun.
Yeah, well, it's something that Christians say a lot, isn't it? You get a lot of theists who turn around and say that, well, you can't steelman the position and you can't talk until you've steelmanned our position, sort of thing. A couple of names are jumping to mind straight away. People who've, I remember saying that. So I think you did a really good job at, doing
I would
that.
love to see. I would love to see two Christians do what we just did.
Yeah, I think
That would be very interesting.
I saw one the other day. I did see one the other day, and it was really good. I just can't remember. I think it was what's the guy's name? I can't think of his name. Popular guys, Christian apologist, and he was debating an atheist who took the theist position. And the atheist kid was good, man. He was doing the theist part, and he was like really good. But the theist did really good for the atheist position too. I mean, they obviously understood the position, like the Christian understood completely the atheist point of view. It was interesting.
That makes me quite.
I'll go ahead, Cindy, and then I'll.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird to see that, because if a theist can understand the position of the atheist, which is saying that your argument is fallacious, if they can understand that, why cannot they understand that their argument is fallacious? That's kind of weird.
Well, they would just say the same thing about us. They would say, why can't they see that their position is fallacious? Like, I'm sure somebody's going to, like some of the Christians that I deal with every day, they probably watch this debate or going to watch it, and they're going to come back and say, well, it seems like you understand the argument, so what is it that you don't get? Why aren't you a Christian?
True, yeah.
Right, well, we have some scores in. So Wes is giving Scott 10 out of 10 and giving Cindy 9 out of 10. So very high scores for both of you there. Oz is going to give Scott 9 out of 10, and he's going to hold the 1 point because you never screamed, "Don't talk over me."
That's right. How could I forget?
Ron's giving it to Scott's the winner. He's now a Christian.
All right.
Hail the Lord, Ron. Yeah. No.
I failed, actually.
Pre-naturalist is Scott presented himself good. He's giving you 9 out of 10.
All right.
Let me just scroll down. Free Naturalist is also giving Cindy 8 out of 10. So, well done. I think that's it for the scores. So I think it goes to Scott by just a very small margin there. So
Yeah.
But I think it's deserved because, yeah, you hold that position. You held that position very, very well. You had all the right arguments they offer in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think you did a very, very good job.
Well, you know, me and Katie, we were the worst of the worst, so we have experience. We
Yeah,
were
that's
Jehovah's
the thing.
Witnesses.
I don't think I could do the same because I didn't grow up in that kind of environment. So
Exactly. Yeah, if you grow up in that kind of stuff, you realize they're thinking. It's all the circular argument.
yeah,
Just keep saying the same thing over and over. That's all you have to do.
yeah, and definitely, being part of a cult, you do learn how to do all of it because basically every Jehovah's Witness is an apologist, and you're taught very well from a very early age how to apologize for religion.
Yeah. I always used to say, if Christians are telling the truth, the hell are they apologizing for?
Well, that's a strange thing. You never hear, all these Christian apologists. I was thinking about this the other day. I've never heard one actually apologize for God.
Yeah.
Say sorry for, all the genocide and mass murder.
A funny way of apologizing.
yeah, on the contrary, they most often try to justify his actions.
Yeah, it oftentimes gets into a lot of name calling, and yeah, it gets ugly. Especially with Darth Dawkins and that whole group.
Catholic no, it's
Catholic
Canadian
tradition.
Catholic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Traditionalist. Yeah, we had him on one
our
time.
Conversation with him. Oh,
Oh man, that was rough.
Although I do also remember the conversation that Christopher had with Darth Dawkins.
That was funny. I loved it. He was talking circles around him.
Christopher?
Yeah.
Atheist pastor? No?
No, Christopher, what was his handle name?
Christopher Stump.
Math Pig. Yeah.
Oh, Math Pig, yeah.
No, not Math Pig.
Oh, not Math Pig?
No, he's not. No, Math Pig is Irish lad. He's got his own channel.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
no, Christopher's Christopher Steelman. He's a mathematician.
Yeah, he's a smart kid, man. The only problem with him, man, is he'll talk to you, and he has to have a damn board where he can write it all out for you and spell it out for you, and it's like, man, I don't know what the hell this dude's talking about right now. But yeah, he's kind of hard to follow, but he's smart, just a smart guy and a nice guy.
Oh yeah, he's great. I do like Chris. Yeah, so I think we're going to have to give that one to Scott. Well done, Scott. You did have the hardest job tonight, so well done. And thank you, obviously, both of you coming on. Absolutely fantastic. I think it's been quite entertaining for everybody, so thank you very much for that. And thank you to everybody in the chat who's been watching. Hope you've enjoyed yourselves. I would like to shout out, obviously, tomorrow night we've got Promethean Secular Frontier. We've got a special episode on there at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you jump over there, we're going to be discussing Star Wars and Jediism, Sithism, and how it relates to religion. So please do check that out. We've also got a very busy week over there because we're starting a new show. So I'm moving my Bog Skeptic show over to the Promethean Secular Frontier. I'll still be uploading to this channel, but I won't be the live streams. One show each week of my live streams will be over on the Promethean Frontier. Also tomorrow night as well, at 9 p.m. Please check out The Bryce is Right over on Tang on the Tarts New Network. Bryce has a really good show going over there, so please do check that out as well. And as always, please remember, ignorance is never bliss. Thank you, and good night.